Good morning, Class 8s. Let us begin with a new chapter today. Chapter 2, that is Reproduction in Plants. Now, first and foremost, what is reproduction? Reproduction means producing young ones of the same kind for the survival of their species. It is because of reproduction that there is survival of species. They continue from one generation to another. If there is no reproduction, a species can be totally wiped out. Okay? Now, reproduction in plants is broadly grouped into two types. We are especially doing reproduction in plants in this chapter. They are divided into two types. One is asexual and the other is sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, one parent is involved. No formation or fusion of gametes. Gametes means they are sex cells. Okay? So, in asexual reproduction, one parent and no formation of gametes are there. Gametes are the sex cells and no fusion of the gametes. Whereas in sexual reproduction, two parents are involved, male and female, usually. Okay? There is formation and fusion of male and female gametes. Okay? So, now let us continue with our sexual reproduction today. Now, it takes place in bacteria, algae, fungi. These are the lower groups of organisms. Okay, the very primitive form. Okay, now they reproduce, these lower groups of organisms, they reproduce by fission or fragmentation or by spores. So this type of reproduction happens in the lower groups, whereas in the higher plants like the potato, ginger, onion, bryophyllum, okay, these are all plants. They reproduce from vegetative parts. Now, what are vegetative parts? Root, stem, leaf. These are called the vegetative parts. Okay. Now, these vegetative parts are called propagules and they help in vegetative propagation. From them only a new plant arises. So they are called propagules, 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 and this type of propagation is called vegetative propagation when they propagate from their vegetative parts. Okay, now let us go into fission, fragmentation, formation of spores, like how it happens. Here we are. Number one, fission. Fission simply means splitting. Now, this happens in the lower groups like amoeba, bacteria. Okay, now over here I've shown you in amoeba. Here, this is the amoeba. Okay, and you have the nucleus in the middle, right? And this is the whole cell. It is a unicellular organism. So the nucleus, first there is the splitting of the nucleus. Once the nucleus splits into two, the cell splits right from the middle, right across from the middle. And then two small identical cells are formed. These are called the daughter cells. Now, this type of fission, where in the end two daughter cells are produced, that is called binary fission. Binary meaning two. Bi means two. Okay, by splitting, two small daughter cells are formed which are identical. This type of fission is called binary fission. Now let's move on with the next one. Next one is budding. Okay, now Budding takes place in yeast. Okay, again, it's a lower organism. In the lower groups, I mean. Here, a bud is formed. Over here also, the nucleus also starts dividing. As the bud forms, the nucleus starts dividing. Okay, then there is splitting of the nucleus and the bud also gets detached from the parent cell. Okay, and a new daughter cell will be formed. This is called budding. Simply a bud is formed. Can you see over here? Okay, and in the bud, after the nucleus splits, one nuclei goes here, and finally it detaches from the mother cell, the parent cell, and then it gives rise to a new organism. Okay, a new yeast cell will again be formed. Now the third one is fragmentation. This happens in Spirogyra algae. It is an algae. Okay, now these are like ribbons, actually, long flat ribbons. Okay, now during the time of reproduction, what happens? They just split into fragments, small fragments, and these fragments will again give rise to a new individual. So this is called fragmentation. Example, Spirogyra, which is an algae. Now next one is the spore formation. Spore. Now this happens in mosses and ferns. Okay. Now on the lower side of the leaves, or underside of the leaves, black spores are formed, black structures. First they are green, but when they mature, they become brown in color, right? And once these spores, they burst and the spores are let out in the soil or in the air, it is finally distributed everywhere. And from the spores, again, when it gets suitable, favorable conditions, they develop into a new fern or a moss. It gives rise to a new plant. Okay, so this is spore formation. Can you see the spores here? All the one in brown. Okay, this is on the underside of the mosses and ferns. Now then we have the fifth type, which is called the vegetative reproduction. Okay, this type of reproduction takes place from vegetative parts. Now vegetative parts, I told you, it may be the roots, it may be the leaves, it may be the stem. Okay, these are called propagules. Okay, and when they give rise to new plants, this type of reproduction is called vegetative propagation. They may come out from the leaf, stem, root. Okay, now vegetative reproduction is also of two types. It is of two types: natural vegetative propagation, which happens naturally, and artificial vegetative propagation, man-made. Okay, natural happens naturally on its own, but the other one is artificial vegetative propagation, where man is involved. Okay, that's why it is artificial. We shall be doing this later. Let us stop here for today. If you have problems, please give me a call or send me a message, right? Okay, here is your assignment. Class 8A, assignment 10, full marks for define, explain. Okay, what is reproduction? I have already explained, it's right there, okay, in the video. What are the two main types of reproduction? Also there. What are the different modes of reproduction in the lower organisms? What is vegetative reproduction? So these 4 questions, okay? Thank you.